My fellow freedom fighters, it is with great pleasure that I would welcome you to the 5th ALS Friedman Conference. Who would have thought 5 years ago, when a motley crew of ragged libertarians met upstairs at the pub of Sydney City RSL, that we would have grown to the level where we have had this conference over 350 attendees. This has become the biggest free market pro-liberty conference, not just in Australia now, but in Australian history. We are the largest pro-liberty conference in our region. And in fact, given my tendency, as some of you would know, for hyperbole, I've also worked out that we can actually claim per capita that this is the biggest libertarian conference in the West. With over 70 speakers, including a dozen international speakers. I want to particularly thank everyone and all of our speakers who paid their own way, including those who flew from overseas to come here and still, on top of paying their own way, still paid even more to buy a conference ticket. So thank you very much. It is easier looking at events around the world today for us to seem pessimistic. Liberty may in many areas seem to be in retreat to forces of socialism, populism, nationalism. However, I think tonight is a testament to just how strong our message of freedom, of small government, individual rights and free markets is. The fact that we have so many people here dedicated to these core principles shows how much promise we have for the future. To use a line that Tim Wilson, the former Libertarian of the year, uses, I firmly believe that the future is going to be awesome. Every year we try and build on this conference. Every year we have new things, and I wanted to point out a new fun addition, which you may have noticed seen to tonight's dinner. We actually have a photo booth outside. So in addition to all of our official photographers, and we are incredibly fortunate to have the amazing Judd as well as Arvin's here taking the formal photos, and a huge thank you to them. If you want to take some photos in the photo booths and dress up, they've got some masks and costumes as well. That might be something you might regret in the morning, but if you post it on Facebook now, it'll definitely cause great amusement for us all. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the people without whom this conference wouldn't happen. First of all, I would like to thank my partner in crime, Dr. John Humphreys. Since founding the Australian Libertarian Society 16 years ago, founding a great number of the organisations in the Australian Liberty movement, John has been an amazing asset, without whom this conference would not have occurred. I also want to pay tribute to his successor. As you would have heard, John is now moving to... sorry. John is staying on as president of the Australian Libertarian Society, but to Dr. Stuart Hatch, who is now becoming the managing director. I want to thank the ATA team who have worked so hard to also help make this happen, in particular to Celeste, whose tireless work in setting all of this up. I also want to thank all of our volunteers, particularly those who are up until 1 o'clock in the morning most nights this week ensuring this. Actually, could all of our volunteers stand up so that everyone can thank them? Volunteers, don't be shy. Stand up, volunteers. We are very, very fortunate to have a great team at the Australian Libertarian Society and the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, with our staff, with our volunteers, with our team, even the people we actually contract to, like our graphic designer. I want to pay a personal tribute to Brad, because if anyone finds out what our graphic design Brad's been doing for us, I'll be hauled before the Fair Work Commission for breaching slave labour legislation. So just since we're there on video, I want to thank Brad for his work. I also want to acknowledge all the political support that we've received. We're very fortunate to have support from many, many members of Parliament, several of whom are with us today. We have with us, and hold your applause until I list all of them, but we have with us from a federal level the good Senator David Leyonhjelm. We also have with us from the state level the Honourable Dr. Peter Phelps, the true great freedom fighter from New South Wales. And I particularly want to acknowledge Dr. Phelps, because I think he's one of the few people who resigned from a lucrative position as the government whip on a matter of principle. This is something that actually talks... You're not going to listen to the whole applause, okay. And we also have with us the Liberal Democratic Party's first elected state member of Parliament, Aaron Stokehouse. Okay, so this conference, however, would not occur without the support of our sponsors and our donors. And please, we're going to be here all night if you clap for all of them, so please hold your applause until the end. Or until the beginning. Firstly, I want to thank, to list some of our sponsors, first of all, I want to thank one of our major new sponsors this year, eBay. We've also, some of you will know some of the draconian tax legislation that the government is bringing in. And I would recommend that you all go and visit keepshoppingopen.com.au on this issue. But the second sponsor on the list is the Atlas network of free market think tanks. Atlas does amazing work around the world, and over 90 people are here tonight as a part of Atlas scholarships. This is an amazing... shh. We have three international students who are here as part of Atlas scholarships from Indonesia and Malaysia. Atlas is a great network of free market think tanks, and I also want to announce that, and I believe this is the first time this is being announced, that the Atlas Liberty Forum will be held in Jakarta in February next year. This is an event for all the free market think tanks in the Asian region, and Raina, who is here. Raina, can you stand up? If you want to find out more about it, please go and speak to Raina, and thank you to Atlas for all their support. You might have noticed at this dinner that the wine is particularly good, which is because we are delighted that the main sponsor of the dinner tonight is De Bortley. And so Darren... Where would a libertarian be without alcohol? So thank you to Darren, and there are actually some tasting notes for the wines if you would like to peruse them. Also, I'd like to thank some of our other sponsors from the United States, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, with whom we've been working on instituting financial reform in Australia. Statecraft, with whom, once again, sponsored some of our VIP functions. Our sponsors for our award, we are delighted that once again Uber is joining us as one of our sponsors. And we all know the great work that has occurred in this region of ride-sharing, and just how that has revolutionised the economy. And once again, the obligatory anti-taxi comment about Mark Latham, who is also here with us today. Sam Kennard from Kennard Self-Storage is one of the greatest champions of liberty in Australia. Sam, please stand up. Ron Manners from the Mancal Economic Education Foundation. Where's Ron? a former winner of our Lifetime Achievement Award, but Ron always ensures we have a wonderful delegation of Mancal scholars attending with us. You'll also note once again that we have a professional video crew. We're one of the best video production companies in Australia, Indimax. So Ben and Topher's working already, but Ben, wherever Ben is, thank you to Indimax. And if any of you need video production work done, please do seek them out because they are awesome. I'd also like to acknowledge some of our other sponsors, of course, the Institute of Public Affairs, one of Australia's leading free market think tanks. There are CIS people here. Also some of our other sponsors like Unshackled, which is reaching new grounds in alternative media, and thank you to Tim Wills. So, and everyone else who has contributed and helped us out. This wouldn't... I'm about to. I'm still going. This also wouldn't happen without some of our individual sponsors. There are very, very many sponsors of this event, but two in particular individuals stand out, and that is Peter Whelan and Warwick Morris. Again, stand up. I said stand up, not high-five each other. With such a great team of supporters behind us, how could we have any other option other than succeed in the future? Now that the formalities are over, from my perspective, the real formalities begin. You are all here, however, to listen from one of the greatest speakers in the liberty movement, Grover Norquist, and to formally introduce him, I would like to invite Simon Brainey from the Institute of Public Affairs. We all know Simon. He previously won the Young Libertarian of the Year award at this very conference. He's also the Director of Policy at the IPA, responsible for great victories for freedom, such as the battle for freedom of speech, which for many, many years he has been a champion of. So without further ado, to informally introduce Grover, can I ask Simon to come and join us?
Thanks, Tim, and what a wonderful pleasure it is to be here tonight for the dinner. It's been an excellent conference so far, and I'm very much looking forward to tomorrow, particularly at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, where there's going to be a wonderful forum on economic reform, which I encourage all of you to get along to. I'm so pleased to be up here tonight because, not to put too fine a point on it, but Grover Norquist is fucking awesome. This is a guy who has literally travelled in the 80s to war zones to go and fight with anti-Soviet guerrilla forces. Grover, of course, though, is best known for being the founder and the president of Americans for Tax Reform. The primary policy goal is something which I think most of us in this room would probably get behind, which is that tax increases are a bad idea. Yeah, a bit of support in the room for that sort of principle. The ATR opposes all tax increases as a matter of principle. It's also had a huge amount of success, and Grover himself has had a huge amount of success getting politicians in the United States to sign the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, which unfortunately in some of them I think they're hypocrites for actually signing the thing and then probably voting for some tax increases, but extraordinarily successful. There was a period where 95% of Republicans had signed the pledge. He's of course responsible for the Wednesday meeting, which is a very famous... One day I'll be over in DC and I'd love Grover to get an invitation to the Wednesday meeting. It's literally on the bucket list of libertarian, conservative, liberal things to do when you're in DC. It's been described by the nation's Robert Dreyfus as the Grand Central Station of the conservative movement. And he's also responsible for promoting, he's probably the greatest proponent of the Starve the Beast principle, which is the idea that the goal of, and he's described it himself, is that his goal is to cut government in half in 25 years to get it down to a size where we can drown it in a bathtub. Grover also attended in 2014 the Burning Man Festival, which those of you, okay, so there's some of them from the sensible drug reform guys who will be strongly in favour of the Burning Man thing, but a lot of us in this room would think that a conservative from the United States going to Burning Man's a bit strange, but the great description that Grover gave for this is that there's no government that organises it. That's what happens when nobody tells you what to do. You just figure it out. So Burning Man is a refutation of the argument that this state has a place in nature. Awesome. He also, a little known fact, he also won an annual competition in 2013 for DC's Funniest Celebrity. So I look forward to seeing a bit of that tonight. And most importantly, Grover has shown his commitment to be here tonight by the fact that he left LA. When he was in the air, the flight came back to LA. He slept on the floor of LAX overnight to get a plane the next day. But to be fair, it's probably better treatment than some customers on United Airlines have had recently. Grover, I'm very much looking forward to what you have to say. Please come and join us on the stage.
Simon, thank you. Tim, as Tim said, fellow freedom fighters, it is so exciting to be here. I have wanted to visit Australia ever since I saw the movie The Sound of Music. And I finally got to get here. I want to talk a little bit about the struggle for freedom, the history in the United States, what works, what doesn't, and how we can move forward as rapidly as possible to expand liberty. And somebody said, you know, we conservatives, where we find liberty, where the statists didn't stomp it out, we conserve that, okay? Where liberty has been damaged, we need to remove the state from getting in the way. But we certainly want to conserve those liberties that have continued. I would bring your attention to this map. There are a number of them handed out on each table, if you could share it, because when people talk about Washington, D.C., or the United States, at least for the last 6 months, they miss the forest for the tree, the orange-haired tree, that's very exciting to talk about. But Trump, the United States predated Donald Trump, and this map, the red states are 25 states that have a Republican governor and both houses Republican. If the Republicans get together and agree, they can turn their state into Texas or Hong Kong as quickly as they want. Half the country lives in a red state. This was true before Trump came in. He's the cavalry coming in late, okay? He's in the wake of a series of victories that have moved across the United States. We have a Republican House of Representatives, a Republican Senate, and by that I mean a Reagan Republican House and Senate, which is a different kettle of fish. It's a much better, more... President Reagan said, libertarianism is the heart and soul of modern conservatism. He changed the nature of the modern Republican Party. The yellow states, there's 7, have both houses Republican. At some point in Louisiana, when we get a gubernatorial candidate with somewhat fewer girlfriends, we'll have a Republican governor. I bring to your attention, of the 57 states, only 6 of them are blue. Hawaii, California, Oregon. If you squint, you can see Delaware, technically a state, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. 6 states have complete Democrat control, and if they work hard at it together, they can turn themselves into California or Greece. Which is to say, we have some built-in advantages, and we're taking advantage of that as we move forward. We didn't get here by mistake. It took some doing. Trump showing up is helpful. He has just put forward a tax plan This is the second tax plan. The first tax plan is to abolish Obamacare, which we will get done, despite some false first steps. Abolishing Obamacare is a $1 trillion tax cut, over a decade. Obamacare is 19 different taxes, adding up to $1 trillion. They stapled a stethoscope to the top of it and called it Obamacare. It's also at $1.2 trillion in government spending every decade. So when that goes away, it's $1 trillion tax cut every decade out into infinity. So the tax cut everyone's talking about is the second tax cut we're looking to do. And as Trump has outlined, he's going to take the American corporate income tax, now 35%, highest in the world. We're number one, okay? 35 down to 15. Then the business tax, the business income that a lot of more than 10 million Americans pay business income taxes through their personal income taxes. So they run a small business, but they run everything through their subchapter S personal taxes. Those are as high as 44%. That goes down to 15. That is as big a deal as taking the corporate rate down. And nobody in the press understands it, so they never mention it. We finally get rid of the death tax. Yes. The death tax was put in to pay for the American Civil War in the North. Now, I went to public school, but I was watching the History Channel recently, and I realized that this war has been over for some time. But the death tax is still there. Finally, we're going to get rid of it. Not cut it. We cut it back all the time, after each of our wars, after Spain so viciously attacked us, and we had to go after them with the Spanish-American War. Then we'd cut it back a bit, then it would grow again. When we get rid of it, if you ever have a chance to kill a tax, kill the tax. It is much better than simply cutting it. We're getting rid of the alternative minimum tax, which is an entirely alternative tax structure, because in 1969, 115 Americans were not paying much in income taxes because they put all their money into municipal bonds, which were tax-free because the government wanted to subsidize corrupt big city political machines. And they decided we have to stomp this out. So they set up a tax structure which now hits 2 to 3 million Americans to get the 115. We're going to get rid of that. That goes as well. So the tax proposal that has been put forward by Trump and will be passed by the Republicans, they'll fiddle with it, but something very much like that will pass in the next 6 months, is an extremely radical pro-growth, pro-freedom tax cut. Getting rid of the death tax, getting rid of AMT, reducing rates, gives Americans a lot more freedom in how they organize their lives. Now, I mentioned that Reagan changed the nature of the modern Republican Party, and through that, the United States. We used to have 2 political parties, and they were simply regional parties. If somebody told you they were Republican, all you knew was they were born north of the Mason-Dixon line. Okay? And in the South, there were these little old ladies who agreed with Ronald Reagan on absolutely everything and voted for the left-wing George McGovern, who is a Democrat, because Sherman had been mean to Atlanta recently. And we had these completely irrational two-party system. It was regional. There'd be this marbling as immigrants came in, but the South was solid Democrat, and the North was more Republican. Again, you didn't know whether somebody was for higher taxes or lower taxes based on what party they belonged to. Shirts and skins meant nothing. Everything was bipartisan because liberal Republicans and liberal Democrats fought conservative Republicans and conservative Democrats, and it was a mess. And during the political lifetime of Ronald Reagan, we sorted the 2 parties out. And this is, I think, where we began to win, because we largely sorted out into 2 parties. If you're a Republican, your default position is for less government, lower spending, less taxes, and a more open and free society. If you're a Democrat, you have a more ambitious understanding of the role of the state and what it ought to do, everything, anything. And those 2 have sorted themselves out. And the big divide is on the tax issue. No Democrat will vote against a tax increase. And since 1990, we haven't had a Republican vote for an income tax increase at the national level, not once. The only time they've ever been able to raise taxes is when the Democrats had complete control of the government. The two parties have separated themselves out. And this is extremely helpful because it allows us to brand the parties. Now, what I did with the Taxpayer Protection Pledge is I shared a written pledge, very one sentence. I promised never to vote for a net tax increase. Not that we don't trust you, but there are two witnesses, and it's dated, and you have to sign it. And we've gotten more than 90% of Republicans to take and keep that pledge. We had one guy who forgot to keep it, George Herbert Walker Bush. And he had a fairly successful presidency. He managed the collapse of the Soviet Union without a lot of blood on the floor. He kicked Iraq out of Kuwait and didn't get stuck occupying the place for 20 years. But he had one slight problem, one hole in the bottom of the boat. He lied his way into office. He said he wouldn't raise taxes, and he did. And he was asked to do something else for the rest of his life. After that, in 1994, where we had ivory soap percentages of the modern Republican Party signing the pledge, the Republicans won the House and the Senate, and they've largely kept them since. The House has kept it except for 4 years, and both the House and the Senate are back in Republican hands after losing it as people got tired of Iraq in '86. But that's the two parties separated themselves out on the tax issue. With the pledge, we've branded the modern Republican Party as the party that will not raise your taxes. They may invade small countries they can't pronounce, but they will not raise your taxes. And that's been good enough to win a great number of elections in the House and the Senate, and even at the national level at the presidency. Branding is important, and it makes it easier for voters. Coca-Cola has a strong brand. You know what's in Coca-Cola. You see the Coca-Cola bottle, you take it home, you throw it in the basket, you take it home. You don't ask, gee, I need to read the ingredients, ask the proprietor if you could have a taste. You know what it's going to be like. And you take it home with you. Now, if you get 2/3 through your bottle of Coke, and you look over and you see a rat head in what's left of the Coke bottle, you do not say to yourself, you know, I'm thinking I may not finish all this Coke tonight. You wonder whether you're going to buy Coke ever again. You do the selfie, you send it out on Facebook, and Coca-Cola has a big problem. And because it damages the brand, not just your Coke bottle, it damages the brand. Republican elected officials who vote for tax increases are rat heads in the Coke bottle. They damage the brand for everyone else, and that's why we have to police it. Now, we have two parties, and look, how do we get from where we are to more freedom, okay? In the United States, our coalition, first of all, we had to realize what it was, which wasn't clear to everybody. But we have a meeting. 150 people plus get together every Wednesday for an hour and a half. Many of the people here I've seen have been through. You're all invited. Talk to Tim Andrews and just send us an email when you're coming through DC on a Wednesday. And that meeting, people are invited to talk about what they're doing for 3 minutes. What are they doing to promote liberty? What's the project they're working on? What's going on that everybody else should know about? 30 people present for 3 minutes each, 90 minutes, and we have a very good understanding of what everyone in the center right is doing. So there's great communications on tactics, on strategies, just on facts. We're going to be spending time on this. Everyone should be aware of it. We're going to have a vote at this time in Congress, and we can work together, and we bring the whole coalition together. But if you look around the table, and we have stadium seating, so if you're back a few rows, you're up a couple of feet, and everybody can see everybody. If you look around, who's there? In the modern Republican Party, in the Reagan Republican Party, everyone is there because on their vote-moving issue, not on all issues, on their vote-moving issue, What they want from the central government is to be left alone. Think about that. You go around the table, taxpayers don't raise my taxes. Okay? Small businessmen and women, don't regulate or tax my ability to run my business life away from me. Professionals, self-employed people, they don't want to be dragged down with labor laws and tort law and all these other regulations and taxes. You go around people who homeschool their children. They want to just they just want to be left alone to homeschool. They don't knock on your door and tell you you should homeschool. They simply wish to be left alone to do so. People who take the time and effort to send their kids to private schools and opt out of the wonderful government's offer to babysit your child for 12 years. You go around in the United States, I know not every country quite gets this, but in the United States, the Second Amendment is an important thing, and there's a strong political movement that cares about the right to keep and bear arms. And again, the members of the National Rifle Association, 5 million members, they do not knock on your door on Saturday and insist that you read Sarah Palin's most recent book, Heather Has Two Hunters. They don't tell you you should be a hunter. They simply wish to be left alone to keep and bear arms. And the various communities of faith. They wish to, people from the most important thing is practicing their faith and transmitting it to their children. In the modern conservative movement, Republican Party, we have Orthodox Jews, evangelical Protestants, conservative Catholics, Muslims, Mormons. They want to be able to practice their faith. They're not asking for Baptist stamps. They don't want everybody to be an Episcopalian. They simply wish to be left alone so that all the pagans can go to Hades on their own because they completely misunderstand Scripture. And they realize that if they're free to get it right, everybody else has to be free to get it wrong. So around our table, the guy who wants to make money all day looks across the table at the guy who wants to go to church all day, and he says, that's not how I spend my time. But it's not necessary they agree on how to spend their time. They both want the government limited enough to leave each of them alone on their key issue. And they both look over at the guy who wants to fondle his guns all day. And they say, no, it's not really what we do with our spare time. But again, that's not important. So there are many reasons why people fear the state, wish the state to back off and be limited to do the few things that they're supposed to do, like keep the Canadians on their side of the border. And after that, there's not really a lot we ask the state to do. That's why on the right, the libertarian conservative movement, ours is a low-maintenance coalition. No one wants anything on a vote-moving issue at the expense of anyone else. Now, I got a call in 2000 from the New York newspaper saying Hillary Clinton, this is back when she was running for Senate, one of the races she didn't screw up, and before anyone knew her. So in 2000, she's in upstate New York doing this listening tour, because then you can't attack her for saying anything. But she did say something. She said, you know what us progressives need? Progressives being what liberals call themselves after they drove liberal into the ground. You may remember in the States, they shifted to liberal because progressive had become equal to Stalinist, and they decided that had to go. So now they're back to progressives again. That won't last too long. But she said, what us progressives need is one of those meetings like Grover has, where we get everybody together. And the press called and said, what do you think of that? And I said, well, I walked through. I said, here's how our coalition works together. Here's why the freedom movement can work together, even though we don't all agree on everything, and there are things we disagree on. On central issue, we want to be left alone by the state, and everybody agrees the state should leave the other guys alone on their vote-moving issue. And what would Hillary's? And that's why we have a coherent center-right meeting. Center-right, just so they're the left, and we're the center-right. What would Hillary's table look like? And if you went around, we have the big city political machines, the trial lawyers, the labor union bosses, the two wings of the dependency movement. These are the people who are locked into welfare dependency, and the people who make $90,000 a year managing the dependency of other people, making sure none of them get jobs and become Republicans. And then you have all the coercive utopians. These are the people who are better than you are, who care more deeply than you do. And as a result, it's their job to be in charge of your moral uplift using the power of the state to goad you into behaving. These are the people who invented and mandate the cars that are too small to put your entire family into, who invented the light bulbs that convince you you have glaucoma. These are the guys who legally require the toilets that don't completely flush. And on the Sabbath, you have to separate the white glass from the green glass, from the brown glass for the recycling priests. And they have a list of things you have to do and a list of things you're forbidden from doing that is slightly longer and more tedious than Leviticus. So around the left's table, they can get along as long as we're stupid enough to keep throwing cash into the center of the table. If we raise taxes and keep throwing cash in, then the left can get along like the scene after the bank robbery. One for you, one for you, one for you. Everybody's happy, smiles, smiles, smiles. But if we do our job correctly and say no new taxes, and we mean it, and we don't allow tax increases, and that pile of cash in the middle of the table begins to dwindle, then all of those folks around the left's table begin to look at each other a little bit more like the second to the last scene in those lifeboat movies. Now they're trying to decide who to eat or who to throw overboard, because the left is not made up of friends and allies. It is made up of competing parasites. And if we don't feed them taxpayers, they will turn and start gnawing on the guy next to them. So our job is to not raise taxes, allow their contradictions to ferment and to get them fighting with each other, so that when we meet them in 2 and 4 years in the next election, there are fewer of them and they're shorter. So what do? We have a Leave Us Alone coalition. We have a Takings coalition, the people who view the proper role of the government as taking things from other people, usually money, and giving them to other people, usually them. These are the two coalitions. Our job is to figure out every day how to find and activate more of us and how to make fewer of them. As you look around, questions like Uber. 10 years ago, there wasn't Uber. In the United States, there are now 700,000 people, independent contractors. The labor unions and the taxis and the government regulators are at war with them. The 150 Lyft guys, it's like Uber, just a competitor. These are people who have a second job or a first job, full-time job that did not exist before, completely illegal. This is a new model. Uber and Airbnb, this is corporate civil disobedience. These are companies worth billions of dollars who go into a state, into a city like DC or Nevada, and start something completely illegal. The law is completely nuts, but it is the law, completely illegal. They get enough consumers and enough customers and enough people working for them that we're bigger than the parasites that they're fighting. And they win in city after city, state after state. We're used to thinking of companies as the guys, because they have so much at stake and immobile capital, and the government leans on them, they got no place to run, and that they're always compromising and sometimes feeding the beast. Well, we have a different model in Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and some of these other new companies that challenge Amazon. Technically was violating all sorts of laws and just shipping stuff across state borders. Everybody's so happy with them, the politicians, and and they back off from enforcing some of their stupid laws. Homeschoolers. 30 years ago, homeschooling was illegal in 48 states in the United States. You could go to jail for homeschooling a kid. It was truancy. Today, it's legal in all 50 states, and 2 million kids are homeschooled. Homeschooling is deep privatization. Okay, it's not getting a government scholarship or a voucher to go to a private school. It's just opting out completely. The government doesn't even get to touch them. Okay, that's deep privatization, and it's a powerful tool. So we in the States reach out to the homeschoolers because what do they want? They want to be left alone. There isn't anything they want from the government. They want to be left alone. The Uber guys, the Uber drivers, Uber the company, Lyft the drivers, the customers, they want to be left alone. They're wonderful allies, and they're new. They didn't exist before. 30 years ago, we have in the United States new law that really started 30 years ago when Florida passed a shall issue concealed carry law. Okay, that means if you're 21, you're not crazy, and you're not a criminal, they must give you a permit to carry a gun. And Florida was the first state with traffic lights that actually passed this law. And as the first large state, non-square state, we now have over 40 states have passed shall issue concealed carry laws. 16 million Americans have a concealed carry permit and can carry a gun concealed. 16 million. There are only 600,000 cops. 16 million concealed carry. Army's about 1 million. Okay? That number is growing at 1.5 million every year. Half of all the new people are women that are getting concealed carry permits. This changes the nature of a human being. Before you had, the government has many services. If I was to get killed by a criminal, the helpful government comes and draws a chalk mark all the way around my body, which it's good to have the government do these things. Instead, he says, you know what, I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to be in charge of protecting myself and my family. It changes the nature of people when they opt out of the state. You want another example of deep privatization? Thank you very much. I'm not talking about rent-a-cop. I'm not talking about mall cops. I'm not talking about the 1.5 million private security guards in the United States. I'm talking about people who take this. No, me. I'm doing it. Deep privatization in concealed carry laws in the United States. These people did not, there were only 3 million people with concealed carry permits 10 years ago. Now 16 million. Okay? So when you look for opportunities to create people who want to be left alone by the government and figure out how to make more of them, that is how you build a movement. Paul Blair, who's here with me, works with us at Americans for Tax Reform, travels around the United States helping to organize center-right meetings like the one we have in D.C. There are 40 states that have a center-right meeting in the United States. A number of states have more than one meeting, but 40 have solid meetings at their state capital. And Paul was around and he started to hear about attempts to tax vaping. Vaping didn't exist 10 years ago. Okay, there was no vaping 10 years ago. This is electronic cigarettes vaping. And people are trying to tax it, and hundreds of people would show up to demonstrate at a state capitol against taxes or regulations on vaping. A New Mexico legislator was defeated for suggesting taxing or regulating vaping. We drew blood, first blood. The Attorney General of Indiana helped pass a stupid law regulating and screwing with the vaping industry and vapers and the product. And he wanted to run for Congress, which, if you've been elected statewide as Attorney General, you'd probably be a pretty strong candidate for Congress. He got crushed, and the vapors helped make this happen. Wisconsin, Ron Johnson is a Republican who was elected 6 years ago in the 2010 landslide. Everybody, including me, didn't think he was coming back. He was 20 points down in the polls. They were running one of their candidates who'd been a senator against him before. He went and organized every vaping store in the state, and his voter margin was less than the votes they got out of the vaping community. Vapors, among other things, go, I'm helping to save my life, I've got a healthy alternative to smoking tobacco, I'm proud of what I'm doing, and the jerk government wants to tax me or regulate me out of my health. I hate them, I wish them to back off. and discovering, just going out and discovering the passion that's there. I mean, a lot of people get messed with, but they don't know how to fight back, or they don't have the energy to fight back. Or they don't know how to do it. Well, we spent some time helping to organize them, but they certainly had the energy. I love them because they have quite a number of guys in the back. I can't hear with all that noise. I can't hear myself think. I don't know what the noise is, but if you want to chat, there's a room outside. I try to stay on time here. And so the vaping effort, again, be on the lookout in Australia, New Zealand, in your local state. Who's being messed with by the government? Those are your possible recruits. And there'll be flashes in the pan, some little tax here that you wouldn't think, but it really irritates people. New taxes irritate people more than the old taxes they're used to. We had one, there's a tax passed in 1898 to pay for the Spanish-American War when Spain attacked us. And it's a 3% tax on the long-distance part of your phone bill. And you get those phone bills, and they're long, and they got all these different things on them. And in the back, FET. How am I supposed to know what FET stands? Federal excise tax, 3%. Almost nobody knew it was there. And the campaign was started to oppose the Spanish-American War tax. Okay? They think we're idiots. The Spanish-American War is over. What are they doing? Of course, that was the perfect tax. You had to, in today's dollars, it was $5,000 to have a phone back then. Okay, so it's a tax on rich people. 2, it was a patriotic tax because we were fighting this war. And 3, it's obviously a temporary tax because the war will not last forever. The tax did last 100 years, but in taking a tax that people didn't notice, like the Princess and the Pea thing, right? And you go, did you notice the pea? Did you know? Yes, now I do. And people were livid. So you can take a tax or an irritant that people haven't focused on and rebrand it as they think you're stupid. They think that they can do this to you and get away with it and take advantage of you. And this tax is supposed to pay for a war that's long over. That's how dishonest those politicians are. And the politicians moved to vote it out. Again, that tax had been there for 100 years, but nobody ever had the right approach to convince people they should be outraged by this tax. It wasn't the largest tax, not the most outrageous tax, but as my high school coach said, if somebody gives you $5 for everybody you can beat up in the bar, you start with the guy in the wheelchair. That was the coach, not me. That was the coach. Now, in addition to making more of us and identifying us and who potential guys on our team, we can also make fewer of them, or at least we can make them less dangerous. I know that in Australia, you're looking at some changes in labor law. Well, let me recommend to you what the great state of Wisconsin, a red state, what the great state of Wisconsin did. They passed Act 10. Act 10 said to our friends in the public sector unions, in the United States, there are 7 million government workers who pay union dues and 7 million private sector workers who pay union dues, pay about $10 billion in dues between the two. In the public sector, they're regulated by the state, not the federal government, but by the state. So they passed a law and said, okay, no one has to join the union. It's voluntary. No one has to pay dues or anything like dues instead of dues, okay? No payment and no membership, voluntary membership. 3, there will be an election every 2 years about whether the union is to continue. And if the union doesn't get 51% of all the people who belong to that union, it's gone. It disappears. It does not last forever. 4, the union, don't applaud too much. There's like a couple more really cool ones coming. It gets better. Then we do crescendo, big applause. The union may not negotiate benefits, like health care. The union may not negotiate pensions. Why? Because mayors will give you anything in 30 years. They're gone. Detroit goes bankrupt. No pensions. They may not negotiate work rules. Management will decide who moves from here to where and on what basis we fire people and hire people and who goes first if we have to have layoffs. And there are no pay increases that can be negotiated beyond the rate of inflation. So the negotiation runs like this. Oh, I'm sorry. And the city, the state, the school district, no one will withhold union dues. If you want to pay union dues, you write your own check, you hand it to the union bosses. We're not going to take it out little dribs and drabs so that you don't notice it. And you sign one time that you'll have it withheld and you forget about it for the rest of your life. Every year, teachers who make $50,000 a year base salary in Wisconsin pay 2% dues, $1,000. Now you have to write a check for $1,000 and hand it to the union bosses in return for your pay increase, the rate of inflation. 135,000, this number is a year old. I got it from Governor Scott Walker, who signed the legislation to pass Act 10. Last year, so it's a higher number now. Last year, 135,000 dues-paying members of the public sector union left. That's $135 million a year the left is missing. Since they passed that law over the 5 years, more than $500 million is missing from the left's coffers in that state. Why do you think we won the House, the Senate, the governorship again, and Trump carried the state, and the senator carried the state? So we not only can look for more people who are in our coalition and bring them in and strengthen them, we can also figure out how to make the other team less fearsome, less competent, and in this case, tell them, you can raise all the money you want in politics. You're not allowed to steal it, though. No more stealing money and spending it on politics. You have to ask people nicely and get it done. Thank you for letting me join you tonight. Tim.
Thank you so much, Grover. As a token of our appreciation, one of Darren's great creations. And I also want to thank one of our attendees, Jeff Grimshaw, who made a T-shirt for you, which he volunteered with a quote from Kerry Packer. I think you all, Kerry Packer was one of Australia's great leading businessmen who once appeared before a government tax committee, sort of accused him, aren't you trying to minimise your tax? In which he responded, anyone in this country who does not minimise his tax wants his head read. Thank you so much. Please enjoy your mains, and we'll have a quick break, those of you who are going out to enjoy the fresh air. And we'll be back with the Liberty Awards very shortly. The time has now come for one of the most enjoyable parts of the evening, which is the presentation of the Australian Liberty Awards. And I'd like to invite Dr. John Humphreys and Dr. Stuart Hatch to come up and join me for these presentations. While they are coming up, however, we, for the first time, and thank you to the Atlas Network for being a sponsor of this, we today had, for those of you at the conference, a Dragon's Den competition. This competition pitted 3 groups against them to try and compete against a panel of 3 harsh judges for a $5,000 prize to prosecute a pro-liberty campaign. So it's one of the first time we have done this, and so I would those of you who are at the session would have heard 3 great presenters. I don't actually know who the winner is because I wasn't one of the judges. So as I get the envelope, and hopefully this isn't a repeat of the Oscars, can we have a drum roll, please? As Jordan will come up and give me the envelope. The winner of the $5,000 Atlas Network Dragon's Den competition is the campaign to abolish the luxury car tax. I don't have a giant check, but can we have Llewellyn Cross, Catherine Slack and Robert McLeod to come up on stage? The two of you, congratulations. Thank you very much. You have 20 seconds to say something. 20 seconds? 20 seconds.
Well, the last time I won something, I bought a $30 lotto ticket and got $11.50 back, so it's much better today. Well, obviously, we'd like to thank Ron Manners, Jordan, and Matt as well. Thank you very much for awarding us the prize. We look forward to putting out a good ad for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, to move to the Australian Liberty Awards, although before I have to do this, I do need to acknowledge the fact that we did run a competition for the cutest cat in the Liberty movement. I know we received several thousand votes, so I do need to acknowledge Vlad for winning. There were allegations of Russian vote tampering, but we did acknowledge that his victory was legitimate, despite Margie's best efforts, because of Margie's best efforts to coerce everyone to vote for Vlad. He passes on meow, meow, meow. The first of the awards for this year is for the Lifetime Achievement Award. This is an award for somebody who has dedicated their life to the Liberty movement. This is an award that I think shows the sacrifice that people have gone through to support our ideas, the ideas of free markets, the ideas of small government and of individual freedom. Professor Wolfgang Kasper is one of Australia's leading Austrian economists, an Australian economists rather. And somebody who has... Both works. Yeah, both works. An emeritus... It's Grover's joke that's gotten to me. An emeritus professor at the University of New South Wales, he's known for his work in institutional economics. In Australia for his campaign of market deregulation, and in many ways for those of us who look at Australian history, the efforts in the 80s for the bipartisan deregulatory reforms that we had. Wolfgang's The Crossroads Group helped pave the way for the economic reforms of the Hawke-Keating and then the Howard-Costello era. Without further ado, I would like to ask Professor Wolfgang Kasper to come up and receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. It is only through standing on the shoulders of giants, such as Professor Kasper, that we are in the fortunate position we are in. So, Professor, if you could just say a few words.
I have no great experience in these awards, because awards and honours are normally given to people who help the government spend more taxpayers' money. But having watched TV and presentations in Hollywood, I think you have to say I'm speechless and follow up with a million words. I won't do that. Thank you very much indeed.
The next up is the Activist Award. On Friday, we were doing an Atlas leadership course, and they described the evolution of a think tank. And first, it's a form stage where you're just getting all together, and then the second stage is storm, where everything comes together and you're just on this massive trajectory. And that's the only way that can actually describe the organisation for which this gentleman is responsible for. Even being over in Perth, I've seen absolutely amazing output from content, articles, interviews, events after events after events. It was almost like, how have these guys formed such quickly and kicked so many goals? They've definitely been a blueprint for how any new kind of little think tank needs to start up in Australia. And it gives me great pleasure to award the Libertarian Activist of the Year award to Andrew Cooper for Libertyworks.
US Continental Liberty Conference.
A little side note: this this award does include a free trip to the US to a. The great sponsor of Indimax has just supported this award to send you off to the US to make even storm even higher, Andrew. So congratulations.
Ask Indimax to come up and say a few words.
And we'd like Indimax to come up and say a few words as well.
Wow, a little bit of warning for fuck's sake. Come on. Look, I've been a libertarian for 25 years, and you know, I was in the fortunate position to have a little bit of a gap in my life, and I said to my girlfriend, partner, I said, look, you know, what am I going to do with my life? I start my passion project, and she said, yeah, you know, you got to go for it. So I've started this passion project, and but it's not my project. It's a concept. What these guys have done, this is, you know, they've devoted their energy, their lives to libertarianism. I'm 12 months into this, to be honest. But this is amazing. This is incredible. But the one thing that troubles me, and I'd love to hear over a beer or wine or a doobie, whatever. But for the last 50 years, I've seen the percentage of taxation in Australia grow from 8-9% to well over 30%. I've seen, according to the IPA, thank you, Simon, I've seen at least 6,000 pages of new regulations be written every year. And we've had organisations like the IPA, we've had originally the Freedom Fighters and the Liberal Party, the Tim Wilson types. We've got the new freedom fighters in the political class like David Leyonhjelm, and maybe Bernardi is going to be a freedom fighter. Who knows, maybe, right? But what I don't understand is nothing bloody changes. And I think the great challenge for us is what can we do to change, to turn back the tide? I don't have the answer. My concern is that Libertyworks is a thought bubble. It'll join the long list of think tanks that have tried to do something but haven't achieved anything. The challenge to us in this room and probably in the extended Liberty movement is how do we make this turn around? Right now, though, I'm looking forward to going to America. Thank you very much.
While we have Andrew still on stage, I don't need to say anything more about Indimax. Tim has already done that. But Andrew, I want to say congratulations, and I want to encourage you. The question that you just asked, you are a part of your own answer. You are a part, and Libertyworks is a part of what's going to make that change start to happen. Thank you for your work. Thank you.
The Uber Young Libertarian of the Year is, pun intended, sponsored by our very good friends at Uber. So to just say a couple of words, we have Jessica from Uber.
Thank you. I've been always told that a quick game is a good game, so I'll be very brief. I have been with Uber for 2 years, and I hate to say it, but in those 2 years I have managed to go from no regulations anywhere in Australia to regulations everywhere in Australia. So, yeah, boo, 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 boo. I think you should hold me personally responsible for that failure in regulatory approach. Having said that, I'm very pleased to be here tonight in the good company of friends where we think that actually less regulations is a good thing. And I'm very, very pleased to be here to present the Young Activist of the Year Award. So I'm going to hand over to Tim, Young Libertarian of the Year Award, and I'm going to hand over to Tim to actually tell us who that person is.
The battle for freedom doesn't stop at the nation's borders, despite what nationalists and populists might tell you. the liberty movement is an international one. So we have gone for a slightly different tack this year. This year, for the Young Libertarian of the Year award, we have chosen someone who is an Australian, brilliant young libertarian who is now dominating the international stage. Naomi Brockwell is a producer on The Stossel Show. She's a policy director at Blockchain Tech Corporation. She's still on the advisory council of the Mancal Economic Education Foundation, a contributor to Reason TV. She has a stellar career, CV in promoting liberty around the world. She's one of Australia's greatest exports anywhere in terms of promoting liberty. So I'd like to ask Naomi Brockwell to come up and accept this Young Libertarian of the Year.
Thank you so much. This is really wonderful. I've been overseas for a while now, but I have to say it's so nice to be back here. And I was just saying, this is such an Australian conference. It's just remarkable what everyone in this room is doing. And just like everyone is so light about this, and I think that that's fantastic. And I think that if we can all be enjoying ourselves and trying to make the world a freer place, that's the best thing that we can be doing. So thank you. I really appreciate this. I did not expect this, but thank you.
Actually, we were talking at the table before about who might win what, and Naomi's first response was that she should win all of the awards. So you got 1/4 of them this year, Naomi. Keep trying. Now, actually, as you know, I stepped down as the ED of ALS and replaced by Stuart. The idea was that Stuart was supposed to do this instead of me, but given who is winning this final award, the Libertarian of the Year, I begged and they allowed for me to come back up here and present it. This person has done tireless work for the libertarian movement, and most of us have seen that work and most of us have appreciated it. But I thought it was appropriate for us to appreciate it a bit more formally and to thank this person a bit more formally. So if Professor Sinclair Davidson can please come up here. Everybody, 2017 Libertarian of the Year.
Thank you, Tim-Buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I am actually speechless. Thank you so much.
So common.
If I had known, I would nearly not have consumed nearly as much wine as I had been told, but thank you so much. I have to say thank you to John and Tim. The first year we did this, about 5 years ago, it was in a grungy, divey place in the RSL, and we have come so far and we've done so well. And to all of you, thank you for coming, and it's been magnificent, and the cause continues, and we are going to go far, and in time, I think we were going to make a real difference to Australia and make us the free place that we deserve to be. So thank you so much.
In what started as a joke a couple of years ago has now become one of the more fun awards of the conference. This is not an official award. It is, in fact, and it is awarded by the previous year's recipients, and this is the Libertarian Power Couple of the Year award. So if we can ask the current Power Couple of the Year, Darcy and Clara, to come and announce the coming up winners.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here passing on this award to the next recipients. So the first half of this year's couple is moulding the young libertarian minds of tomorrow, lecturing in political philosophy. And we all know that's quite a hard task on university campuses these days. The second half of the couple is keeping the grassroots flame alive down in Melbourne, coordinating Liberty on the Rocks.
And we're absolutely thrilled that this year's Power Couple is set to become a Libertarian Power family with the addition of their own Liberty baby. Please put your hands together for this year's winners, John and Molly Thrasher.
Okay, thank you very much. It's hard to top these two, but we appreciate the award, so thank you.
We're especially honoured as not even Australians, but maybe if Naomi's Australia's best import, maybe we can be export, then maybe we can be America's best export.
For our final act for this evening, this is now our 5th Friedman conference, as we've laboured the point considerably. And we have something a little bit special for those of you who have attended every single Friedman conference. So if you have attended every single Friedman conference, from the very first dingy RSL with well under 100 people, if you've from the one in the first RSL with fewer than 100 people to now, if you have attended every single Friedman conference, all 5 of them, if you could please come to the stage. Yeah.
Give me the handful, let me take the next.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of committees.
They are literally handing out participation awards.
Tim, I'm going to let you finish, but Beyonce deserved this award more than we do.
Around, you drunk bastards. Go on, squeeze up. Get your gay on. Squeeze up. You're a lady creature. You gotta.
There's got to be at least one, right?
There's got to be at least one. Try and get it. Hit the helps.
So we have like 3 women on the platform.
You got a participation award.
You identify as a. What were the rest of you doing?
Where did everyone else go?
Getting drunk.
All right, let's go. That's it. Thank you, everyone. You want to say thank you to the drink? Say thank you. Let's keep drinking, or that's it.
Look, finally, I would like to end the formalities with a thank you to the most important people here, everyone else who has attended. So a huge thank you to everyone for keeping the flame of liberty alive. Enjoy, please keep drinking, and note that there is a very, very, very generous bar tab at the after party, the details of which are in your program. We're here until 11 o'clock, and then the Freedom will continue at the after party venue. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your night.